Elvis Presley, the king of rock and roll, became a god to millions, but behind the dazzling stage lights, a darker story unfolded. This is a tale of a man who turned his boyish dreams into reality, only to lose himself in the glittering cage of fame. Elvis wasn't just a singer, he was a phenomenon. From humble beginnings, he soared to the top, becoming not just a music icon but a movie star too. Yet, as the spotlight blazed ever brighter, the man behind the music struggled to keep his footing on solid ground. Elvis's journey to stardom began with a wild fantasy that seemed almost too good to be true. He became more than just a musician, he was an idol. People idolized him, and in return they changed him. In Elvis's world, reality twisted into something unrecognizable. Elvis lived in a realm he called Elvisland, far removed from the everyday life most people knew. In this world, simple tasks became monumental challenges. To change the TV channel, he'd call his dad late at night because even flipping a knob was too hard. It's as if the more he achieved, the more he lost touch with normal life. As time went on, Elvis's behavior became more erratic. His world spun faster, driven by desires that felt both familiar and alien. A simple cigar became an event, needing a dozen lighters to ignite it. This was no ordinary celebrity, it was as if Elvis had become a prisoner of his own success. Those around him, including those he relied on, like his cooks and the Memphis Mafia, played into his wildest impulses. They catered to his every whim, providing comfort food and endless company, essentially coddling him like a child. Elvis's relationship with Priscilla, his first wife, reveals much about his evolving character. Priscilla, who fell in love with him as a child, dreamed of a romantic life with the king. But Elvis treated her more like a fan than an equal. As years passed, their connection faded and Priscilla, tired of being sidelined, left him. This loss hit Elvis hard. In a moment of rage, he even considered hiring a hitman to hurt her new partner. It showed how deeply his ego was wounded and how desperate he was for control and love. Elvis's need for love and protection grew as his personal life crumbled. He relied heavily on his entourage and fans, believing his success was entirely due to their support. This belief blinded him to his own talents and efforts. Meanwhile, his reliance on drugs intensified as he turned to pills to cope with his anxieties and low moments. He'd find ways to get prescribed whatever he wanted, even visiting a pharmacist on a Sunday when stores were closed, just to get his fix. Elvis's father, Vernon, stood by, caught in his own struggles. Once impoverished, Vernon found himself in the luxurious life of a rock star, yet he remained tight-fisted with money. He tried to manage Elvis's finances, but his own frugality clashed with Elvis's lavish spending. Vernon's role became that of a reluctant guardian, trying to keep the Presley empire afloat while dealing with his own insecurities and failures. At the heart of Elvis's struggles was his relationship with Colonel Tom Parker, their manager since the early days. The Colonel was a shrewd businessman, more focused on profits than on nurturing Elvis's artistry. He turned Elvis into a brand, churning out merchandise and maximizing every aspect of the king's image. While the Colonel brought wealth, he also trapped Elvis in a mercenary partnership, stifling any genuine artistic growth. Elvis was left with little guidance, adrift in a sea of material success but lacking direction or true support. Elvis's story is a cautionary tale of how the pursuit of dreams can lead to loss. His descent into a world where normalcy was a distant memory highlights the price of fame. In Elvis's case, the materialistic values that fueled his rise also sowed the seeds of his downfall. His struggle to reconcile his artistic self with the demands of stardom is a poignant reminder that even the greatest stars are human, vulnerable to the same desires and fears as anyone else. Elvis Presley was a unique figure, someone who captured the world's heart and imagination. Yet beneath the glitter and fame, he faced challenges that were very personal. Elvis was surrounded by people who needed him, people who looked up to him like a king. These fans and associates, eager for a piece of his success, would do almost anything to be near him. They would beg, hint, and even demand attention and favors from him. For Elvis, it was like being trapped in a never-ending cycle of requests. Despite his fame, Elvis often felt very alone. There was no one like him, no one who truly understood what he went through. The adoration he received was intense but shallow. Most people just wanted a piece of his stardom, some money, or a small token of his success. They didn't want to be friends or offer real support. This kind of attention can be heavy to carry. Elvis needed to keep up the image of the king, the persona that had made him famous. To maintain this, he relied on drugs, both to feel normal and to escape. But this was a double-edged sword. The very things that helped him feel real also made it harder for him to stay grounded. He was caught in a cycle where the more he was celebrated, the more he felt the need to cling to his image, even if it meant hurting himself in the process. The way people treated Elvis affected him deeply. They idolized him, but this worship sometimes distorted his view of himself. He wanted to live up to the fantasy people had created around him. For instance, a country singer once visited Elvis, constantly asking for a tour bus. Elvis, sensing manipulation, ended up buying the bus for this person. It's a small example, but it shows how Elvis tried to give people what they wanted, even when it wasn't necessary. Elvis's family was another source of stress. Some of them were always asking for money or making demands. They would show up uninvited, often causing embarrassment. One time, Elvis's Aunt Delta even threatened to use a gun on one of his bodyguards. Elvis was infuriated, but also felt trapped by his loyalty to his family. Even when he considered getting rid of Aunt Delta, he couldn't because she had nowhere else to go. As time went on, Elvis found it harder to keep up the act of being the king. He knew deep down that the image of the god-like figure he presented on stage was far from the truth. Sometimes he would break character, poking fun at his own image during performances. This humor was a way he had used since he was young, a charm that kept people laughing even when he was serious. However, by now, this humor felt like a sad attempt to hold onto something that was slipping away. Elvis's attempts to poke fun at his own image had a dark side. While he would joke about being a country bumpkin or make light of his stardom, these moments often felt more like a cry for help. He was trying to tell the audience and himself that he knew it was all a big act. But the more he tried to undermine his own image, the less sincere his performances became. His heart was in the music, but his actions took away from the power and emotion of his songs. In the end, Elvis was a man torn between two worlds. On stage, he was the king, a god to many. Off stage, he was just another person trying to navigate the complexities of fame and the expectations of those around him. His struggle was real, and it left a mark on everything he did. Despite his efforts to maintain his image, the weight of his own desires and the demands of others began to take their toll. Elvis Presley's later years were marked by a deep struggle with health issues, largely due to his heavy drug use. He was surrounded by people who tried to help him, but he often outsmarted their efforts to get the medications he craved. His personal doctor, Dr. Nishapoulos, tried to help by using placebos, but Elvis was clever. He would find other ways to get the drugs he wanted, using his knowledge of medicine to his advantage. He kept a private collection of medications, experimenting with tranquilizers and painkillers. To feel normal, Elvis ended up taking a huge amount of pills every day. Elvis's health problems were something no one wanted to talk about openly. Like his mother, he would deny there was a problem, hide it from others, and refused hospital tests. He loved Southern food a lot, which wasn't good for his weight or health. He ate a lot, fixating on certain foods like fried meat and sweet potatoes. This love for traditional Southern cooking was hard to change, as it was deeply rooted in his culture. Despite his health declining, Elvis tried hard to keep up with his work. He performed in Las Vegas and on tour, though he often lost focus. On stage, he entertained the crowd with his charisma, but on many occasions, he was half asleep or forgot his lyrics. His performances became less frequent as the drugs took over. In his last years, he wrote heartfelt notes at Graceland, showing his inner turmoil and seeking guidance. Elvis's entourage, including the Memphis Mafia, tried to manage his behavior and drug use, but they walked a tightrope. They feared losing their jobs if they confronted him. His father, Vernon, even accused Elvis of causing his heart attack, deeply hurting Elvis. Despite knowing Elvis was in trouble, people around him struggled to accept the reality. Linda Thompson, who cared for him, eventually left because she couldn't handle his needs. Elvis then met Ginger Alden, who was younger and less used to his behavior, but he still couldn't fully trust her or himself about their relationship. As time went on, Elvis became more reclusive. He spent long hours alone, reading spiritual books, especially one given to him by June Juanico called The Prophet. He continued to have nightmares about being abandoned, and his health worsened. He dealt with glaucoma and was hospitalized multiple times for detox. Despite his struggles, he insisted he was in control and refused help. Elvis Presley's story is one of a brilliant talent overshadowed by personal battles. His fight with drug addiction and health issues was very real, and it ultimately affected his ability to perform and connect with his fans. His life ended too soon, leaving behind a legacy that continues to inspire and intrigue people around the world.